This is CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast with Business Solutions MVPs Joel Lindstrom, George Dubinsky, and Sean the CRM Hobbit Tabor. This episode is sponsored by the Dynamics 365 user group. CRM UG is the world's most influential user group community of Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM users and partners. Across the globe, members share a common goal of maximizing and advancing the performance of Microsoft Dynamics 365 and CRM so that individuals and companies can improve operations, overcome obstacles, and exceed goals. Visit their website at crmug.com. We thank the Dynamics 365 user group for sponsoring CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast. If you had, let's say you had $100 or 100 hours or whatever for next year to spend on learning new stuff, and you're somebody who knows CRM, you've been using CRM all the time, you're certified on it, whatever, and you want to branch out. Let's say, give you several topics here. Field service, project service, marketing, either for Adobe or Dynamics 365 marketing. Should branch out and learn something like Dynamics 365 for talent. How would you break up your training focus? Or Power Apps? Let's throw Power Apps in there too. What do you think, based on the way you see Microsoft going, where do you want to be? What should you learn if you know CRM but don't know this other stuff?
Okay, well, I think first what we have to do is we have to look at what type of user this is, right? So if let's say you're a business analyst at a company who uses CRM or Dynamics 365. For that person, I would say, based on the company you work with, if you have field service folks or you have people going out, definitely look into field service. That being said, if that is not the case, a familiarity with the capabilities of Azure in general is a big deal. More and more things are going to Azure, right? More and more things are dependent on Azure. So that's a key. And from that, I would definitely look at Power Apps and the abilities that provides. And in conjunction with something like a field service or a project service, the ability to schedule against anything using universal resource scheduling, I think would be a good tool as well. When we talk about marketing, whether it's Adobe or the upcoming Microsoft Dynamics marketing, that's really going to depend on what role you play, right? If you have a big agency size marketing team at your company, then yes, the Adobe marketing would definitely be something good to know. Otherwise, I would hold off and wait to see what the Microsoft Dynamics marketing is going to provide.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said. I think my big three that I would say, if you're a CRM consultant and want to further your career in the Dynamics world, the big three I see are Power Apps, Field Service, and Customer Insights. Those are the three that I see that I think have the best, strongest future. And then after that, marketing and getting an idea. And it's overwhelming. And I've been going through marketing training lately for various reasons, but it's overwhelming because you see all these different marketing solutions. Within Dynamics, you've got Click Dimensions, you've got Adobe, and you've got coming Microsoft Dynamics 365 for marketing. And so it's like overwhelming. Like they all seem to do the same stuff, but there's subtle differences there that you need to know.
It's a very interesting time for sure. But I think the key message to take away is finding your specialization is critical, I think, right now as a consultant of Dynamics. I remember a year and change ago when I was at not the last summit, but the summit prior, and Tony Stein came up to me and said, "Hey, so Sean, what's your specialty?" And I didn't have one, and it freaked me out. It literally freaked me out. And for months, it made me think, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? What do I want to do? So now I've settled on one with the service components, but yeah, there's so much going on right now in the Dynamics just infrastructure that specialization is key. But you have to have just a basic understanding, knowledge of the other components as well.
So are you listening, Tony? If you are, Sean's specialty is service components and LinkedIn and relationship insights and financial services.
Well, I have subspecialties too. What are you going to do?
And Star Wars.
That's right. Yeah, if you only saw my office right now.
This week I had to pick up some slack. Some people on vacation, some people already in the Christmas mood. All the stores are busy, and so people shopping. I had to do some real work, and tips started flowing because the best place to generate any tips is actually listen to the customers and say, "Oh, really? Is that what you want to do? Well, I don't know if you can do it." And you witnessed me struggling with the recurrent notifications. One of the customers wants to do. I mean, do you actually ask your customers why would you want to do that? Do you ever ask your customers that question?
I do, but I don't use the word why. Why is very accusatory, but say something like, could you tell me more about the reason why? Say it without saying why, in other words.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it does sound accusatory. It does, like, when you started with the why, you immediately kind of on a high horse and say...
You don't want to say, what are you thinking?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what you want to say. Anyway, the latest tip was when the customer wanted to they want to nag people. They like nagging. Maybe it works for them. Like every hour you send email. Are you done? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Right? And and this particular customer, they discovered how to loop workflow indefinitely. Right? The workflow calling itself. The only thing that they wanted to limit this to business hours. They said, it's not really nice when you find 50 emails after a weekend. Saying.
So only annoy people during work hours.
Yes. And I thought that's actually not a bad idea. Like nagging, but 9 to 5. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Well, yeah. Then people discover Outlook rules and saying when you receive email with this subject, then drop it or something like this. But you can generate random subjects. You can be creative, but people send me some code, how to do that, how to check calendars, how to check business days, and I really didn't feel like writing any code. So, and I did end up implementing nothing else but SLAs. And thank you for giving me that brilliant idea, because...
Well, that is because I'm certified on customer service.
You see, I'm only on 2013 certified, so SLAs. I don't think the only standard SLAs were in the version I certified on, so I couldn't do this, custom KPI that I needed to deploy and. But it does the job. It does the most mundane part. I mean, it doesn't do anything you can't do in a workflow, but it does this bit of checking calendar that you can't easily do.
Right. It could be associated with business.
Correct. And a holiday schedule. Yeah. So this bit, that's the most difficult part. And I then realized when I'm training people in customer service and they ask, why do we need to have this, the whole SLA? I can do that easily. It looks like a simplified workflow. I can do it easily. Now I have a good answer for them. It's saying, hey, because it does things which are difficult, like checking the calendar and seeing if it's business hours. Anyway, so yeah, the best place to generate tips is actually do some real work. I've got a couple more coming. Also generated by work. But tell me more about certification. You passed like 14 exams in 4 days? Is that how it works?
Before we get there, do you see other uses for this triggering a job during business hours that SLAs could do? I mean, there are other system type jobs that you might want to run during hours,
that
but not
interestingly that you ask. Let me check one little thing. So as we're talking, the one thing I want to know so I see what you're getting, like have a generic business hours engine. Let me just get, I'm in the system, so I'm just getting quickly editing my trash SLA. It's actually not an SLA. You can put a calendar, so it's always failing. It's always near failure because you keep restarting it. So it's not a good.
So it's the world's least successful SLA. It only fails.
No, you fail and say, let's try again.
So it's a forgiving failure. It's forgive and try again. I got you. Yeah. So I was around Thanksgiving U.S. time. I wasn't extremely busy, and I decided to challenge myself to taking all the 4 main certification exams that are out now. Now there's a field service exam that's coming soon that is not out as of the time we're recording this, I believe. But the 4 that existed, I tell my team to get certified, and as a gold certified partner, we have to have a minimum number of people that have each certification. I challenge myself with no training, with no going through training or reading up on it, just to see how well I could do. And I was able to pass all 4. Now, they weren't all 900 plus. As a matter of fact, I didn't get 900 plus. I came close on one of them. But, I thought that for the most part, the tests were good. One of the reasons I wanted to take them was as I advised people on my team and people in the community on certification path, what are the best tests they should take. I found some of them, and I don't want to give away specific details.
Yeah, because you want to sell them later
tests,
on eBay. I understand.
But, for example, the hardest one, and this I haven't found anybody that disagrees with me on this, the hardest one is the customer service test. And the reason is, and what I'm going to say is nothing you couldn't get from reading the synopsis of the exam. It's so wide-ranging. It covers everything from customer service, SLAs, to entitlements, even some field service content and unified service desk and interactive service hub. It really should be multiple tests, and I think that's where we're going because we have a field service exam coming out. Some of the other ones are a little bit outdated, but I found the sales exam and the configuration exam are fairly up to date, and the questions were good. So here's the strategy in taking 4 tests in 14 days that I've realized. Read the question backwards. And the reason I say that is because
wait a minute, it's gonna sound evil,
the same way.
Right?
Again, not
anything. When you read anything backwards, it sounds evil.
Well, don't read the sentences backwards, but read the sections of the question backwards. So here's the way a question is structured. First, you'll have a scenario. Bob works for the cable company. He's 5 foot tall. He has 3 people that work for him. They have blah 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 blah. A bunch of stuff in there with probably some stuff dropped in there to throw you off the track. Then you have the real question: how do you create a service request in field service? And that's not a real question, so I'm making that up. And then you have the instructions: choose the best answer, choose 2 answers. Each is part of the complete solution. It's very specific. So by reading it backwards, you'll first see how many answers do they want, 1 or more. Then you'll see the real question, not get thrown off by the fluff and the distractions. Then glance at the scenario to see if you missed anything in there. Then by doing that, you're less likely to get thrown off by distractors. And then if you aren't sure, if you maybe torn between 2 of them, A and B, do a process of elimination. Find the ones that are wrong, get them out of there. And by doing that, I found I could go through it faster and usually do a little bit better than if I
Interesting that you mentioned I did employ a quite similar technique, which is obsolete by now because it's 4 years old, but a similar technique in the sense of reading backwards. instead of trying to solve the problem, because it's a multiple choice, you're quite right. Instead of trying to solve the problem, what I do, I briefly read what's about, that his name is Bob, fine. So if answer contains Alice, it's probably not the right one. So I mentally apply those suggestions that they do, those answers, and think, what would happen to my system if I do that? First of all, can I do that? Right? If they ask me, it's 2011 system with enhanced SLA. Right. Well, they were not around, right? So things like that. And then just think, what would happen to my system? And the end result, is it going to fit their requirements in any shape or form? So in a sense, yes. But the other advice I can give to people, because most typically people run out of time.
The other topics you mentioned, you're taking the field service exam.
Yes, I am,
and that's brand new, right? It just came out.
Yes, the first day you could sit for it is Monday, and I'm taking it Monday at 10 a.m. So the first spot on the first day.
So you have the same strategy for field service certification exams as you do for Star Wars movies. Interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
You get camping out in the testing center's parking lot.
That's right. All dressed in my, and what's fun is I dressed like an AC repairman. So, keep that cosplay angle going. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So, here's the thing is, you haven't taken it yet, so anything you say now isn't going to give anything away because you haven't taken it. What's your strategy? What's the biggest area of focus for the field service exam? Because there's a lot of stuff in there.
Well, one of the biggest things for me was that whole infrastructure of assets to inventory to now I'm losing my thoughts. It's that whole how you're rationalizing products to assets to incident types and work order types. All of those types, all of those things that have triggers onto other things. That is huge. Also, just the ability to understand the flow of all of the statuses, what they mean, how things are triggered. Those are big things for me. But other than that, the biggest thing that's concern for me, because I haven't implemented it, is connected field service. There's a good sized component of the exam on connected field service, and I'm just hoping that my studying of the Microsoft official curriculum will get me through where I need to be. So, or I will hear it nonstop from Ben Vollmer, I'm sure. I always try to find the ones that, in a multiple choice scenario, there's always two that say the exact opposite thing, and typically one of those is the answer. And you'll only see that when there's choose all that apply, right? So you know that there's one thing that one of those that are going to be part of it, and then there's a couple other options. But
do you ever have the one where you're not quite sure on a question, you answer it, and then you go and a couple questions later, there's a similar question about it, and it references something that was one of the answers you didn't pick in the other question, so you jump back over and choose that other answer? Yeah. I always flag it. To when I'm not sure, I always flag it. So when it's the review time, I go back and look at the ones that are flagged. But the biggest chunk of the exam is that whole process of scheduling and dispatching. So the whole schedule board, how you filter resources, what are the resources, that kind of thing. That's like 20%. Setting up and configuring it's a big one, but that one I think I can manage. The managing the work orders, that's another big chunk, and that really comes into the whole incident type, work order type, all the statuses and what that means, when it triggers an invoice, all that kind of good stuff. Managing agreements are tricky, but and the other thing with certifications is you have to go in remembering that they're testing you on out of the box capability.
So when you've implemented, field service or customer service or whatever you're taking the certification on, when you've implemented it multiple times, it is, to use a Star Wars reference, you have to unlearn what you've learned in some ways, because you have to not think about how you extended it necessarily, right? Or built a whole new module to do something that didn't work for your customer. You have to remember what does it do out of the box? What are the native functions? And that sometimes trips me up.
Yeah, you have to, and it's not asking what's the best practice. It's asking kind of what's the textbook answer. So you kind of got to think in the mind of, okay, I might do it a little bit differently since I know what I'm doing, but the answer they're looking for. But you got to be careful with that, because you can kind of get into the what do they want to hear instead of what do I think the right answer is, and that can trip you up the way, because you may talk yourself out of the right answer too.
Right.
Just don't. Exactly. I'd say just go through it, and then mark the ones you're not sure of, and come back at the end. But I find if I keep the pace up, then I do better.
Yeah.
I know for a fact that you do much better if you do multiple passes. So there are buttons there to hold the question, to set it aside. Right. You can mark it and you come back. So I do typically basically at least 2 passes. So the first pass is I'm 100% sure on the answer. I mark it and that's it. If I have a doubt in my head about, let's say, 2 I eliminated, but 2 maybe, I put it aside, keep going. Don't even think about it, right? So this way you get 60% out of the way in 10 minutes. I don't know if you employ this multiple passes technology.
What I'll do is you'll come to a section that you don't know as much about, and
skip it.
I'll get stuck there. So sometimes I'll mark the question and skip it and come back and do my best at the end. That keeps your energy up. But the other thing I wanted to try, because I'd heard it existed but I hadn't tried it yet, was the online proctored version of the exams, where you don't have to go to a testing center. You can take them from your house. And so I experienced what that was like for all 4. I didn't go to any testing centers. So what happens is you go to the Pearson VUE and you choose customization exam and say, I want to take the online proctored version. And then at the given time, you go to a website and an Adobe Air app opens up. And suddenly you're connected with your friend Jim, and who knows where Jim is in the world. But he talks to you, and he's looking at you through your webcam. You have to have a webcam. And then he has you show him your desk, show him under your desk, show him the ceiling of your room, show him the 4 corners of the room, do a 360-degree pass, hold your wrists up to it. I had to hold my glasses up to the webcam so he could make sure I wasn't getting any cheats through my glasses somehow.
Interesting. So,
and if anybody walks into the room and is seen in your camera besides you, you instantly fail. So you want to make sure that if you're at home, make sure your wife and kids, or if you're at work, make sure you're in a room that
you can put the sign up,
door, or you threaten people, don't come in this room.
Okay.
Do not disturb sign.
When did that ever stop people? Didn't stop my family, definitely. But I see what you mean. I wonder what happens is I've got these neighbors that have incredible ability to switch on the leaf blower or lawn mower at the exact moment when I'm having a conference call or need to talk to the client or need to just concentrate. I shut the door right now. Typically, my door is open because we've got summer coming up, so it's nice weather and it's sunshine. So I have the door open, and it's reasonably quiet this morning. But it's dreadful experience. The moment you start talking to the customers, I wonder how that's gonna work with the proctored exam. In any case, proctored, it sounds.
I did have my.
Is that okay?
Walk
Is
around
dog
the room
okay?
And they typed is what is that?
Yeah,
they said the
obviously
dog
they
was
haven't
okay.
met smart dogs, like Julie Yak's dogs. I think they know more about CRM than most of us.
And I always go in. Do you have you take them like a robot, so you may not have this, but I have an actual process whenever I take a certification that I have to do. I'm a little superstitious.
Okay.
So I years ago when I took my first cert, I think it was 2011. It had to take it in a certain amount of time. So the only location that was available was a location that's like 30 miles away from me, right? In downtown Tampa. So I went to that place, I took the exam, I passed. Well, after that, I took, scheduled my next one, and it was another 2011 exam. And there was availability much, much closer, like 10 miles from me. But for some reason, I was like, if I take it there, I may not do as well because I passed over there. So ever since then, I've been going 30 miles away from my house to the same exam testing center.
Well, now they switched to different testing centers. Can you still do it there? Is it Pearson View?
Yeah, because they had both at this one. So I was lucked out because I freaked out a little bit when that happened. But yeah, so I go, and I always go like an hour and a half early before my schedule. I stop at a Panera Bread. I'm buzz marketing Panera, but I go to a Panera. I sit down. I have a cup of coffee and a blueberry bagel with reduced fat cream cheese. I go through I go through the curriculum one last time, just for some refreshers. I listen to the Nerdist podcast. It's got to be Nerdist. And then when about 15 minutes before the time, I go, and it's worked every time. So that's my thing I got to do.
I have a process. I open up my web browser, say, "Can I take the test now?" It's yes, and I take it, or the soonest from now I can take it. Then I talk to my friend in India, show him my room with my webcam, and take the test.
Yes, but
that's how you pass 4 tests in 14 days.
Where's the fun and pageantry in that? There's none. No, and you forgot the last step. Incessantly nag your friends when you've passed to let them know how inferior they are.
I believe I told you that if you took it and got a higher score than I did, that I would tweet on Twitter that you know more about CRM than I did. I haven't had to tweet that. I'm just saying.
This is true. You haven't.
Yeah, the certification, to me, it still sounds more like an experience of passing the exam. So the skill measured is your skill to pass the exam. How is that a reflection? Is it? Look, let's put it this way. Since you passed exams before, like CRM 2013, that was the last one I passed. So compared to that, did it improve in any way in terms of measuring not your skill to pass the exam, but measuring your actual knowledge?
I think it definitely has. And, I have participated in exam writing, not recently. I can't say more than that. And I know that the process they go through is much better than they used to. Part of this is to keep it from getting to Test King and being brain dumps. And part of it is just making sure that it's not intentionally trying to trick you. So everything that's an answer, even a distracting answer, has to be a real thing. They can't make up the Mac version of the CRM Outlook client or something like that. It has to be a real thing or close enough that it's not just a junk answer trying to throw someone off. So I think it depends on which exam you're talking about. So I think online deployment, to pass that, you need to know some stuff about how Office 365, permissions and licensing and things like that work. So there again, I think there is real things. Whether somebody who passes the configuration exam can successfully configure and do a good job at it, I don't think it necessarily says that. But it does tell me if somebody passes it, they've had a exposure to all the areas within the exam, and compared to someone who doesn't have any certification or has taken a certification years ago, I think it does have merit. Now, part of the reason I took it was because I wanted to be able to advise my team, and what I tell my team is certification is important, but it's not the only thing. To me, that's the starting point for someone who's a CRM consultant, and then beyond that, then it's doing the real work and successful projects experience. But again, I think somebody newer who is up on the latest technology versus somebody who last learned CRM 2011 and maybe has been working with old on-premises customers, I think the newer person with the updated certifications might have the upper hand on the old pro that isn't necessarily been exposed to
technically speaking, if I see two individuals or even two resumes that are equal in all regards, but one of them does have certifications, I probably would be inclined to look at that first, simply because person even went to the effort of prepping and passing those exams. I know you did try to pass successfully, I might say, without preparation, but most of the people do prepare, do spend at least some time on the subject. So I'd say, my vote would go to that resume, in the absence of any other factors. As I said, typically there is more to it, obviously, and I wouldn't discard the person just because they don't have any certifications, by all means. But it's a plus. It's like if someone put in on the resume, I used to volunteer for Boy Scouts. Well, I said, good on you. It's a plus, and it's a plus. You did some community work. That's not a bad thing to have on the resume. It's not the first thing, but it's an extra little weight. So, what else new?
Have you used the mobile version of Edge browser yet? It's now general availability for both iOS and Chrome.
No, I haven't. But I've heard nice things about being able to continue browsing. Is that how it works?
There's two things. The continue browsing feature is not necessarily limited to Edge. In iOS, and you have to have the latest version of Windows 10, and you can download an app on iOS or Windows, continue on PC, and any website you're looking at in Safari or any browser, I think it works with pictures too. You can click the little share arrow and say continue on PC, and it will pop up Edge and go to that website, exactly the same place that you are. But the nice thing about Edge is your settings and your bookmarks and other things that you have, as well as things you tag for read on the go, will work on the phone. So you can on Edge you'll be able to tag, say, read on the go. And
interesting. It's not even called Edge on the phone.
It's called Edge browser.
I just did a search. No, it's called Continue on PC.
Those are two different things. Continue on PC is what will, when you in Windows 10 say link to my phone, you'll be able to add your phone. Then with the Continue on PC app, that adds the little share applet that you'll be able to share.
Now I know why I have not tried it. It must be a US store only, because I'm browsing iOS Australian store
did you search
and
for
Microsoft Edge browser. I've searched Microsoft Edge browser, not coming up. The Continue on PC is the only thing that came up. Edge browser, Firefox, Web browser, VPN plus Tor. That's interesting. Opera, Google Chrome, Puffin, Google Private Browser,
Try the
Aloha
Puffin browser. See what happens.
What? No, it's a browser. It's yet another browser. Files free downloader? No, it's definitely not coming up.
That's too bad.
So it must be US store. It must be regional, US store only. Anyway, I have no comments, but Edge could be quite annoying in its suggestions to install Edge beta browser.
Right.
You know, it keeps popping up on top.
It thinks a lot about
Chrome
it. Thinks a lot of itself
when you search for it. Yeah, it does too. I noticed the one thing that Edge does extremely well. If you come across of sites that use certificates for authentication, then it does extremely good job in using those certificates and letting you in without unnecessary prompts. So I found that works quite well in Edge, particularly with Microsoft Active Directories. So Microsoft technologies. So if you talk to Active Directory, which deploys certificate authentication, then Edge works quite well and let you in seamlessly just based on presence of the certificate on your machine. You dial to a Windows hello, and then basically it prompts and say, yeah, would you like to log in with the certificate? And you say, yep, sure. And you in with certificate. Do you actually come across enterprise deployments where people do use certificate-based logins?
I haven't. No, I've seen people using multi-factor authentication and things like that, but I haven't necessarily seen.
No. Multi-factor is, yeah, it goes a bit deeper than that. So basically, as enterprise, what you can do, you can, with Intunes, you can either join your machine to Intunes or you can deploy Intune policies to your machine, to the machines who wants to join the program, so to speak, right? And the policies could be, for example, your PIN needs to be at least 6 digits. And your timeout before the machine locks up could be only 1 minute. So I found that's the most annoying requirement, but I must have it if I want to use certificate-based authentication. And then what happens is basically you log in, you add login to your machine, you go into your security, configuration security, and then you say add login. And the same way as you add your, let's say, Live ID or Microsoft account, you add the corporate account, and then it can install push certificate to your machine, your own certificate. It stores it securely. And then when browser fires up, the other side say, hey, do you have a certificate? And your browser will say, yep, I do. And Edge will say, hey, let's try that. And it would seamlessly log you in without any prompts. It would say, is it okay if I use this certificate? And you just say okay, and it goes in. So it's quite nice and seamless technology. Obviously there's a lot to do for DevOps who deploy that, but once it's done, it's fairly secure and very seamless experience for the users. So just something to look at when you're looking at large enterprise scale deployments with Windows.
Yeah, I don't know of any that I've seen use that, but I may not have talked to them about their logins. I haven't. I've asked about Intune a lot when I meet with clients, but I haven't had a ton of them that use Intune or use it extensively yet. Are you seeing Intune a lot?
No, not really. But the point about Intune in this scenario is that you don't see word Intune popping up left and right. You're part of the experience. Intune is the thing that pushes the requirements to your machine, but at no point in time it says, are you about to experience Intune in your life?
Right, but I do have conversations about mobile device management, and as Intune is one of the supported platforms, I'll ask, do you use Intune? And they'll say, what's Intune?
Oh, okay, interesting. Again, it could be that the experience is quite seamless. So the mobile devices managed by Intunes, it's quite possible that they don't know that they're using Intunes, that their devices are joined. Like, ask them in a different way. Ask them if, for example, their devices have policies enforced on them, like longer pins.
I would say
like
it depends on in the industry. If it's a manufacturing company, probably 9 out of 10 of those don't use any kind of device management and have anything goes. If it's financial services, banking, or insurance, they usually lock them down, and you can't do anything on them. So but there's a lot outside of the banking, insurance, financial services where they don't actively manage the devices. They let users pick what devices they want to use within reason, and then just go with it.
Yeah, certainly. Well, it's challenge anyway. You know all about the mobile world and dynamics, because I don't use, and none of my customers actually use mobile. Do you see, probably because of the size and the complexity of the deployments, do you see like small to medium enterprises using mobile successfully?
Anybody who's got a salesperson or sales manager that is on the road generally does.
Okay, and it works well regardless of the size of the deployment.
Yeah, I mean it works fairly well. Now I do think where V9 is going in unified interface will make it easier for smaller companies to do that, since it's going to be at some point the same interface. I agree that it's challenging for very small companies to take the time or money to optimize and tweak it and get it working in a usable manner. But yeah, I've seen some very small companies use it. It just depends. It's not so much the size of the company. It's based on how and where the users are working. And that when you're big enough to have a sales force of any size, then you typically need connectivity on the go via iPads and iPhones and Android.
Interesting that you mentioned that regarding the size of the customers. I think one of the most challenging and complex integrations I ever done was and still is for the customer that have like 5 users. But just over the years, the integration was steadily growing, and they found it useful, and it was growing and growing and growing, and we've been migrating it version after version. And now it's quite complex, and it does a lot of complex things. So invested there over the period of time. They invested a fair bit of money into it, but it works for them. So, I found it extremely interesting that it's the smallest one. None of the bigger customers have any integration of this complexity. They all sort of balk at the idea, or at the similar ideas, and say, "Oh, it must be too complex." It's like how you eat an elephant,
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about marketing. The marketing Dynamics 365 for marketing is still under wraps, under NDA, private preview. We can't talk specifically about anything in the preview program. But then, surprise, late last week, they dropped 3 or 4 YouTube videos about it, showing the customer journey designer, the designing emails, and other things like that showed a lot about the core features there. So it's interesting. We can't say new stuff other than, hey, go watch those videos and see where Microsoft is going.
I'm just curious, at what position in Microsoft you have the authority to say, stuff NDA, we're giving everyone else. We're going to do it ourselves. Like, certainly, if I'm a PM on a specific feature, right, I can't just go and publish videos. I need to get a clearance of legal department and things like that. I need to get that. But I'm just really, really curious how does it work in terms of like broader features like marketing. Right?
Yeah,
the bug should stop somewhere. I wonder at what position the bug stops.
And it feels like a pendulum to me. It feels like it swings from the very conservative to the let's show a Star Trek scenario where none of this can really happen today. Like a year or two ago, they had all these videos about, around the time Cafe X was announced, about Omni-Channel customer service that showed a scenario that no way could happen in real life. And then last week, they also released a video about how to create custom fields in CRM, a very basic video that could have been made 4 years ago. So I don't know. I don't understand, and I'm glad that what they're showing is not showing a, magic paintbrush that you can do whatever you want with. They're good videos, and they show a lot of the strengths of what, when it comes out, if it works well, what that'll be like. But, it's interesting interesting. So go watch those videos.
I did, but the timing is really interesting because Navision 2018 has just been released, right? And as you know, the whole concept of the business edition was around not the dead one, the new one. The new concept is based around Navision or Nav, rather, and sales and marketing apps from the customer engagement. So I wonder if timing is coincidental with the release of Navision, saying this is the territory, and they're just going around tree to tree and marking their territory.
Well, and here's the other thing. Here's the other thing I noticed is if you search YouTube for Dynamics 365 for marketing, you cannot find these videos. But if you search for things like Dynamics 365 customer journey, you'll find videos about it.
At what point in time you think anyone would, sit down at the computer and say, "Let's search for customer journey, the adventure"?
I don't know. So it sounds, and there's no blog posts related. So it sounds like they want to get something out. Maybe they have certain constituencies or, analysts or somebody they want to show some new stuff coming, but don't want to put too big of an emphasis on right now. So let's put these out, and some people notice, but we're not making a big splash until after the holidays and everything. So, but in watching these, and I also, full disclosure, I've been preparing for a blog post that I'm working on for before the end of the year. I've been trying to think through what all these marketing stuff out there. So you take Adobe, you take ClickDimensions, you take Marketo, Sales Fusion. All these are very similar when you look at a comparison that just checks the box. Do you have event management? Yes. Do you have email templates? Yes. Do you have nurture campaigns, social integration, all this stuff, lead scoring? They all say yes to that. So why is ClickDimensions and Sales Fusion this price, and then Adobe and Marketo are multiple times more for this? Is it the same stuff? And I've come to a realization that is, and I've verified this with some of the people that I work with and clients who do marketing. The real key difference there is, I think, can be summed up in multi-channel versus omni-channel. So, like ClickDimensions is a very good marketing automation platform that does multiple channels. It does emails, it does SMS, it does social. Does social really well now, actually. But it's more of a campaign execution. I'm going to do a campaign now. I'm going to have it do a social thing. Then I'm going to have it send an email or a text, schedule a phone call, and then store that in CRM. Whereas where the Marketos and Adobes go are more omni-channel, where the message in channel 1 and 2 changes based on the way you interacted with channel 1. And so a lot more intelligence there, and a lot more of what people look for that want to do marketing to consumers. ClickDimensions and Sales Fusion are primarily for marketing to other businesses. So if your business sells stuff to other businesses, that type of let's score the leads and categorize them based on who the most likely lead is and go after them, versus Adobe and Marketo. They're saying, let's get a full picture of who George Dubinsky is, and is he our ideal customer? And, he was on our website yesterday, now he's on Facebook today, so therefore we should send him this message. That's the key difference.
I was actually told that Adobe, to me, integration with Dynamics didn't start well because they showed us iframes and said that's the future. Well, that's hardly the future, right? So, but I was told by people who do know Adobe marketing saying that it's on a different, completely on a different level to what's possible. To what's possible with other things. Like it's Adobe Marketing. Think of you walking into the store and for example, knowing that Joel walked into the store.
They've got a very good video that they do. It's kind of funny. It's a bank robbery. And then the masked men walk into the bank and the teller says,
I saw that, yes.
I see you. I see you've been looking at mortgage rates.
Speaking of which, the recognition technologies, that was really interesting, a bizarre experience. I was talking to my bank, actually what I wanted to do, and as I discovered that it's much harder to cancel credit card than to get one. So in Australia, we hit this with interchange rates, like 3% for all overseas transactions. Majority of banks charge it, but there are some new cards that don't charge it. Because I travel a lot, it's much more convenient, and you shop overseas, and it's much more convenient when you're not charged 3%, right? So I got this new card, which doesn't charge 3%, and it works with Apple phone. So I'm now walking around with the phone and, like magic, bang, bang, bang. I pay with my phone, which is quite convenient. But then I called to cancel my old one. And I'm talking, and they put a specialist. They say, I'll pass you on to... deboarding specialist or something like this, right? And her job was to keep me on, right? So that was a really interesting conversation. Anyway, so she kept throwing stuff at me and say, what about this? What about that? What if we had this one and that one and this? And you already paid the annual fee. And anyway, she kept trying me on and on. The end result is I said, yeah, look, okay, since I paid the annual fee, let's keep it on. Give me these perks you're talking about. Let's keep it on. I'll park the card. I'm not going to use it, but for emergencies, maybe. Anyway, but then I receive email. Literally within 10 minutes, I receive email that we enabled a voice recognition technology on your account. We recorded your fingerprint, the voice fingerprint. I don't remember. I think I might have consented to that at some point in time without thinking. But they actually sent me a message saying, we know what you sound like. So now I can verify. They can verify me on the phone just by me talking to it. They didn't ask for any specific phrases or anything like that. They just said, look, we know who you are. You're done.
So anybody who wants to break into George's account, play this podcast, and you will get all his money.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I guess I don't know how it works. Interestingly, remember I told you my experience with trying to wake up Cortana with the recording. Right. And I played synthesized voice, and it wouldn't wake her up at all. But I recorded myself saying, "Hey Cortana," and it would wake her up. Of course. Guess who woke up? How much wood to make up? Or I have course just call woke up. How much wood?
Well, I've noticed when the Amazon Echo commercials come on and they say, and I'll say it, my Amazon Echo will wake up, but they say, Alexa, on the commercial, my Alexa wakes up, but then it immediately shuts off. So I think they must embed some kind of a tone in there or something to make it not actually order the dog food when they say order dog.
Is any of these coming our way in Dynamics in general?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's the vision, and that's when you look at when people are saying omni-channel customer service, setting some marketing aside, the idea of being able to give people a seamless experience. I actually had an experience with Amazon, which was actually pretty positive. And a lot of people complain about Amazon's customer service, and I've had bad customer service with them. But I had an experience where a year ago on Black Friday, I had signed up for the $5 Amazon Cloud unlimited storage thing, and I never use it because I've got OneDrive for Business, and Dropbox, so I don't need to have that as well as Google Cloud. I've got a couple terabytes available to me, and then on the anniversary of last year's Black Friday, I got a American Express charge for $60, and I looked and said, "What's that?" I didn't order anything from Amazon for $60, so I went to, first of all, their chat, and I think it was a bot because it felt like a bot to me anyway. And I said what I'm going to do. It said, "Please wait while I route you." Then it got me to a person chatting, and it felt more like a person at that time. And I gave him my details. She said, let me connect you via the phone to the data, whatever the data team is or whatever that handles that. They'll refund your money back. My phone rang, I picked it up, and they did it. It was to me the best omni-channel kind of support scenario I've had, and mixing both artificial intelligence and real people together.
It's really interesting that you mentioned, because one of the demos I've done recently, I've done it at Tech Summit in Sydney with the portals. Build it. It's online sample that I just build it and run it, and it lots of moving parts. But the end result is that you deploy bot in your CafeX installation. One of the agents is a bot, and this bot does two things. One is it can do a Q&A. So you have a long list, and you can build and expand this list of Q&A. You've got list of questions, list of answers, and the bot can, answer certain questions, like how do I, return a purchase, or things like that, But then it also measures the sentiment of the thing saying. And if you get angry, it basically saying if experience is not positive, there's another kind of piece of the puzzle is the sentiment measurement. If it detects the anger or unhappiness, it say, look, I think we're done here. I'm transferring it to human. You're getting angry. I'm machine, no point. I'll give you a human to be angry at. So it works quite well. I know all the demos are at a bit toyish level, but definitely can be done. So,
and that's what surprised me. That's what surprised me about Relationship Assistant, because I was demoing Relationship Assistant, and I sent an email or posted on Yammer internally to my company, said, "Hey, send an email to this address. I need to get some sample emails to show with Relationship Insights and Relationship Assistant." And my friend Eric, he sent an email and said, "I don't know why I'm doing this, but here you go." And the relationship card popped up instantly and said, "Eric sounds like he might be a little bit upset. Maybe you should call him." So I thought that was an interesting experience. Yeah,
you did call him.
I called him and asked him if he was feeling okay. He said he was.
Oh, speaking of the marketing experience and experience with Dynamics marketing and the stuff we can't talk about because we did sign NDA. A couple of things. The one is signing NDA is the thing that sometimes it does give you a lot, right? So people can talk to you, can disclose things to you freely, but then sometimes in the public arena it puts out that extreme disadvantage. I remember there was a session on customer control framework at Extreme, and the guy who was presenting, Paul, he walked in and he started his conversation with something like, "This session is under NDA," and we're like, "Wait a minute," because saying things like that immediately puts everyone who did sign an NDA into non-disclosure mode. Mm-hmm. If you didn't sign, if you brought a friend along who didn't sign NDA, you're good, because this friend of yours can go around and talk about things because they didn't sign anything. So my question is, do you guys sign NDA with your customers, or rather, do your customers demand or request an NDA with you because you're accessing their data, their IP, their proprietary information, their business
It's pretty standard practice. It's pretty standard practice for enterprise customers to expect an NDA. We usually try and make it a bi-directional NDA, mutually exclusive on both sides.
Yeah. So, but my advice would be, even for smaller customers, our standard agreement is a two-way NDA. We're saying if something is disclosed, which is not public information, it could be, a business know-how. Because with Dynamics, you go deep down into their processes. Inevitably, you will get an exposure to this stuff that is critical to their success, to their advantage over competitors. So, and using that information will certainly, if you go around to their competitors, say, hey, I know how those guys get in their discount. Would you like one? That certainly will be a no-no. So, yeah.
Well, and the other thing is with the thing that keeps me, along with losing my MVP, from breaking the NDA is there's been multiple times where things that seemed like a done deal have been dropped right before a release. And then if I broke the NDA or even blogged about it, even if NDA wasn't there, you wind up looking foolish because what you wrote about never happens.
So what you're saying is thank you Microsoft for making me sign an NDA and not looking at me like a tool, because I keep talking about things that never gonna see the light of the day.
Protect me from myself. This has been CRM Audio, the Dynamics 365 podcast, with Business Solutions MVPs George Dubinsky, Joel Lindstrom, and Sean Tabor. This podcast is a production of Dynamic Podcasts, LLC. Follow us on Twitter at CRM Audio. Subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that fine podcasts are available. You can email us at voice@crm.audio with questions or topic suggestions.